Hey everybody, it is Eric, it is Brian Trainer, and we have returned from the Colonel and the Sinkhole at NCM in Bowling Green. In Kentucky's, of course, known for Corvettes, caves, and Western Kentucky University in Bowling Green, and two of those three were represented at this race. Alright, let's talk about the judges to begin. The Lemons Inferior Court consisted of Janice German, Kristen Embry, and both of the founding members of Zero Budget Racing, Randy Clark and Brian Trainer. We should also make mention of Judge Kristen's husband, Gavin Embry, who was racing the number 750 Rooster Racing Porsche 944. And, having the judge on the Lemons Supreme Court definitely improves your race results.
Being the racetrack for the National Corvette Museum, one might expect to see a lot of Corvettes. And we did. And they performed about as well as could be expected. Number 73 returned with the Thunderbolt Grease Slapper and did okay. The number 6 Ragged Racing Corvette sure existed. The 941 of Hippocratic Oath caught on fire, and the 851 Juice Mania and the 95 Fire Marshal Bill were identically prepared by a pair of brothers, and clearly their only competition was themselves. But then they were forced to join together when both cars decided to break down, and they had to rob the clutch from one and put it on the other, so they had at least one good car to finish the race.
Did we just become best friends? Yup!
In addition to being the home of the Corvette factory, Bowling Green is home to Western Kentucky University, and a film crew from the university was at NCM this weekend following around a couple of teams, including the Corolla the Dice team in their 87 Corolla FX16. They were chasing parts. They literally went to every corner of Kentucky to get things to make the car work.
There were a couple of really good rookie teams and drivers at this race, and many of them brought impressive themes. The first one was car number 8 in their 2002 Subaru WRX, named Yabba Subaru, and they had an awesome Flintstones theme, complete with costumes and bribes that included Brontosaurus ribs.
Someday, maybe Fred will win the fight.
They lost a main seal and had to quit early, saying, "We can fix it. We just can't fix it here." We have high hopes for them in the future, and if you're gonna go from Flintstones to the future, maybe they'll have a Jetsons theme?
Yeah!
Another great set of rookies was My Apollo G's with their Miata. They are from Huntsville, which is home to the U.S. Space and Rocket Center and Space Camp that I never got to go to as a kid, but I'm not bitter about it at all. I'm talking about it on the internet in front of everybody. Oh, Tom got to go to Space Camp and I didn't get to go to Space Camp, but, Tom's okay. I'm not mad. Anyway, these guys are rocket scientists, so they use their Apollo theme with shirts and bribes and an impressive technical manual that could probably use as an acronym penalty. We hope they bring that back so we can use it against other teams, and definitely not them, in the future.
Yeah!
Now, last year, the 190 Peacockified Racing team in their 2004 Hyundai Elantra was a rookie team that made literally every single mistake a rookie team can make. They brought their kids as rookie drivers, and guess what? The 16 and the 17-year-old drivers made way fewer mistakes than the adults did last year, plus the daughter laid down a faster lap time than her dad. Well done, rookies.
I would say the future is looking strong for Lemons.
Yeah!
We also have some cars of distinction worth talking about. We'll start with the Piston Liberation Front. We got a preview of what the Previa could have been. This time they put a small block Chevy V8 in the middle of the Previa to make the Previ 8. Their weekend ended, unfortunately, when they noticed they had left an oil trail back to their paddock from God knows where. They promised to return with a fixed oil pan and dominate. Cannot wait for that.
The Suzuki Kazashi returned and did what it does best.
Dominate!
It finished better than almost every single Corvette and half the field with its CVT transmission and unobtainium parts. They are literally trying to kill this car, but it just keeps going.
If you've been to NCM, you are familiar with their very strict sound ordinance that is enforced with a local neighborhood right behind the racetrack that has decibel meters. Not Real Professional Racing, who had been gone for a few years, came back and decided to test those sound meters with their unnecessarily loud and incredible cheap-ass supercharged engine. Brian, what did it sound like to you?
Kind of sounded like a vacuum cleaner with a cat stuck in it. What's it sound like to you, Eric?
You know, I thought it sounded a little bit more like a...
Dr. Florida Man, Donnie Petrunik, was the BS spokesperson for racing someone else's mistake in their 2013 Ford Mustang. He mercilessly harassed the judges with corn-themed bribes in an attempt to get the Mustang into Class C because corn starts with C. The bribes and intimidation didn't work, but it wouldn't have mattered because they didn't finish well enough to win Class C if they had been in it, so there.
The penalty box was pretty active all weekend, which gave the judges some chances to try out new things, like Judge Janice having a team do the recycling sorting. Dumpster Fire Racing, a Subaru team, brought a box full of obscure head gaskets with a cheat sheet for the judges that was given to teams to identify them. One of the teams did that. It took almost an hour. There might have been a TVR gasket in there. That's obscure as hell. And also, bring a TVR to Race in Lemons. You will definitely win the race.
This was Judge Randy's first race as a justice, and he introduced the Wash the Judge's Service Vehicle penalty. He's an excavator by trade, and I can guarantee you it has not been washed since the day he bought it. Peacockified Racing, which we mentioned before, brought a snap-together model of the Vannenball that was pre-painted for use as a penalty, and Team 514 in their Miata, whose roof blew off while driving on the racetrack, had to assemble the Vannenball as penance for their crimes. It immediately fell apart.
Speaking of the Vannenball returned at this race, and if you're unfamiliar with the Vannenball, a really awesome guy from Kentucky named Zach Caldwell took a Dodge Caravan racing for several years, including a long stint where he took it on like 5 straight weekends of racing. It was absolutely nuts. Unfortunately, Zach passed away earlier this year. Another team had acquired the Vannenball in the meantime, so it returned. They managed to get a few laps in it, which is, better than some races, for the engine finally called it quits. That did not stop them, however, from having a really good time at the potluck, so the van was, as it should be, at the center of the party. All right, here are your class winners. And a couple of words on the overall winners. Team Non Sequitur in their BMW. These guys have been running Lemons almost since it existed with the exact same team. So after 17 years, they finally won a race. Just imagine racing with your teammates for
17 years!
Heroic Fix was one that came down to the wire. The 212 Burning Mag is a rookie team. When attempting to get ready for NCM, some missing gaskets caused their car to catch fire. Burning Mag showed up with what I believe was an Acura RSX that was a former dirt track racer. And when they turned it over, there was a mystery knocking.
Knock, knock.
They decided to do an engine swap in the pits. And when we checked on them in their paddock, strewed with parts, one of them looked at us and said, "I've never worked on a car before." They brought it to tech on Sunday, right when the track went black flag all for weather. They had to sit until someone could come tech the car. They had a couple things to fix. They did finally pass tech with 8 minutes left in the race, scrambled to attach the transponder, and entered the track just before the checkered flag dropped. They got 1 lap. That's pretty heroic.
I Got Screwed went to the Dunning Cruisers and their 97 Thunderbird. Now, this is a team who really enjoys BS inspection. This time they had prepared a whole mock presidential debate between ABS Lincoln, the Make America Shift Again candidate, and imperiled Ford for the working class C folks, but their car had other ideas. First, a wheel bearing failed and they took the spindle to a machine shop to get it fixed. Meanwhile, they flew their personal plane to Almost Canada, aka Cleveland, to pick up a spare.
That's the artificial horizon, which is better than the actual horizon.
When they finally did get it on track, they had done the classic Lemons move of forgetting the hood pins, so the hood comes up, smashes the windshield, so they are then scrambling for Lexan, and just for the final kick in the crotch while they were down, the kill switch had developed a crack in the housing. It had an electrical short that then fried the car's entire electrical system. And by the way, all of this stuff happened on Friday before the race even began. When they finally got on the track Saturday, they eventually were black flagged for smoke that was apparently a wheel bearing basically catching on fire. It managed to take the CV and the spindle and the caliper and the brake and the line and kind of just mush it all together into one fused piece of metal that was like the Borg.
We are the Borg.
Or the Blob.
The Blob.
Or something maybe a little more triumphant.
Our special trophy went to a car that debuted at last year's NCM race. When it showed up and it wasn't actually a Ford Maverick but a C5 Corvette in a Maverick hat, that was a little disappointing. But this team knows how to build fast cars, and they managed to win overall in just 4 races. So what did they do? They rethemed their car and turned it into the Maverick James.
I'm Rick James, bitch.
This is how you impress the judges. And since it was essentially a Corvette underneath, and most of the other Corvettes either caught fire, broke down, or just kept getting black flags all weekend, we gave them the only Corvette that doesn't suck award.
Judge's choice went to I Shit You Not and their 2006 Chevy Cobalt. Now, this car and team were in the running for several prizes. They could have easily won a heroic fix, which is funny because they are GM techs for a living and chose this. In the weekend, they went through a broken clutch plate, 2 wheel spindles, 2 transmissions, and 2 alternators. They even had to charge the car's battery just to have enough electrons to take the checkered flag.
They had an impressive Vote for Dale theme that put them in the running for Halloween Meets Gasoline. I was still wearing my Vote for Dale button going home, and a cashier asked, "Who is Dale and why should I vote for him?" You want to know Dale's economic policy? He'll let you know after he asks his wife.
So they had plenty of mechanical issues and they were running a political campaign, but they were always smiling and in a great mood. These guys are awesome. Their car is terrible. Judge's choice.
Loose Nut Racing generally has Halloween Meets Gasoline on lock because they've won it like 5 times in the past. Well, they elected to go with a themes are hard theme, which was impressive, but also, is no theme a theme?
No.
Loose Nuts Racing has also taken up the mantle of the aforementioned Zach Caldwell and his fundraising efforts for Lemons of Love. Zach initially had a goal to raise $23,000 in 23 races with his van and ball. Loose Nuts decided to have a raffle at NCM in his honor, and coupled with some generous gifts from teams donating their prize money, that goal has been surpassed. Loose Nuts Racing is a team that gets what Lemons community is all about. Organizer's choice.
Halloween Meets Gasoline went to Skinny Coyote Racing. Now, if you've ever been to the driver's meeting at a Lemons race, and if you're a driver you have been, you've probably heard me say something like, there are no IMSA scouts at this race. Well, Skinny Coyote Racing decided that maybe there should be. So they painted the truck in a whole IMSA livery and spent the weekend pretending to be IMSA scouts. They measured everything, they had templates cut to fit to measure cars for reasons. They scouted the paddock all weekend looking for talent. Probably didn't find any, but they did manage to slap some approved stickers on stuff. Even the judge's Corvette owner's socks failed IMSA tech, by the way. They did a great job carrying the joke through the entire weekend, which is kind of how the template for Halloween Meets Gasoline is. And to boot, team owner Jerry Ringel not only donated the Halloween Meets Gasoline prize money to Lemons of Love, he quietly made up the difference to hit the $23,000 goal. That's a classy move. These guys are awesome. The theme was tip-top.
Before we get to IOE, I wanted to mention a special Hella Sweet trophy from NCM. I expected the message boards were lighting up with the entry of a 1959 Edsel. Why you ruin classic? Everyone online was certain the Edsel was the sure thing for the IOE, but the judges had a problem. they left me alone with the judging sheet. And while the Edsel is a beautiful car in its original pink and white patina to perfection, it is also a hat car. It's part Crown Vic, part something else, but a most excellent hat car. The Edsel had been in the family for decades, but sat in a field, neglected for most of the time. Travis Brown from In Search of Excellence made a deal with his cousin. In exchange for serious hardcore labor of mowing down an abandoned field that the Edsel was in, it would be his. This car has been walked on by a cow, it had a barn fall on it, but now it is a glorious Lemons racing machine that even earned an Earnhardt-style door kiss on racetrack and is indeed hella sweet.
Index of Affluency, our top prize, went to Fat Bastard Racing, and you're probably thinking to yourself, what could possibly beat an Edsel for Index of Affluency? And if you answered a completely bone stock 1982 Chrysler Fifth Avenue, you're correct.
Ding, ding, ding! What do we have for her, Johnny?
Now, this car had the original factory paint, factory tires, factory HVAC controls zip-tied to the dashboard, and quite possibly the factory oil in the factory 318. When the engine was torn down after they got it, the oil had de-evolved back into fist-sized sludge chunks underneath the intake. They did a pressure test, and the engine actually lost oil pressure under high revs. The fix: clean it out, throw it back together, just see what happens. The last 3 cars this team had all built were broken down before he got a chance to drive, which is why he didn't bring a second set of tires. After the car surprised everyone by running all day Saturday, they had used up their tires. Fortunately, the team next to them had the same bolt pattern and were able to lend them a spare set of wheels for new tires. The wider tires made it look kind of racy.
Well, okay.
The Fifth Avenue started the race, the Fifth Avenue finished the race. It may have been amazingly slow, but it finished higher than most of the Corvettes. Index of Affluency.
And now, here's Lemons in a nutshell.
Every second you don't subscribe or watch one of these videos, another Vega is sent to the crusher. Won't you help us save Classic?